Welcome to the Piece of Me podcast, the place to find different ways to bring enjoyment, simplicity, happiness, and of course, more peace into your life. Life gets busy, noisy, and at times it's messy. I'm here to help you clean things up and put peace back in its place. Each episode, I'll share tips, ideas, and fresh perspectives to help you live your best life. Hi friends, it's Leigh. If you're new here, then welcome. If you're not new, then welcome back. I'm glad you'll be joining me for today's episode, which is it time for a life pivot? So the reason I wanted to do this episode is because I had something happen recently and it kind of made me pause and kind of just check in with myself and just decide if what I was doing felt aligned or something that I was enjoying anymore. And when I thought about it, it just kind of was one of those things where it just kind of caught me in the moment. And I thought to myself, this happens all the time, that we can just we're in such a busy world. We're all doing a lot of things. We're all going, 100 miles an hour, that we can just be on autopilot and we can just miss something. Like something's missing, something doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel aligned. But because we're running on autopilot, we don't really stop and check in with ourselves. So that's why I wanted to do this episode of kind of like, do you need a pivot? What does that look like? How do you go about that? What can you expect if you do a pivot? And that's what we're going to dive into today. So this episode won't be very long, but I just kind of wanted to give you some thoughts, just kind of some things to think about so you can decide for yourself if this is something that you need. Well, let's just start with some of what's out there. There's posts, there's quotes, there's hashtags, and everything is, hashtag blessed or hashtag grateful. And, those things can kind of distort our mental vision and, make us wonder, is there something wrong with us if you're not feeling blessed or, grateful or thriving, right? There's all these big buzzwords out there right now. And maybe you don't feel that, maybe you see someone else posting these words or hashtagging their experiences with those words. But when it comes to you, you're just not there. You're not feeling that. And sometimes you feel that pressure to feel a certain way. And then when you don't, it's kind of like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not being appreciative? Why do I not why is this thing not bringing me peace and happiness when it should be, right? It should be. Okay. So that's kind of where this whole discussion is coming into place. So taking a step back, a lot of us are running on autopilot. We're going through the motions. We're so busy just checking things off the list, the stuff we have to do, the stuff we always do. And we just show up to the things that we have to show up to because it's just what we have to do. It's right. It's an appointment. It's a thing. I'm expected to be there. I'm obligated to be there. And a lot of those things, and a lot of those times we're not checking in with ourselves because we're just going through the motions. We're just doing the things. We're just showing up and doing it. But if we do stop and check in with ourselves and take a moment just to hear the thoughts that are in our own head, what would we hear? What would we learn from that? What would it feel like that what we've been doing is right? Should we continue to do what we're doing? So I'm kind of talking in generalities right now, but these things can apply in so many different parts of your life. And when I say life too, that's another thing that's out there. It's live your best life. But how can you live your best life if you aren't actually living your best life? So that's where the whole pivot comes into place. There might just be a little area or a little tweak, a little category that just needs a little fine tuning, little department in your life that with just a little bit of time, a little TLC, a little just realigning things, you'll feel like, okay, I am showing up the way I want to show up. I am doing the things, I'm spending my time doing the things I want to do. I'm spending my time and energy around the people I want to spend my time and energy around, and things will just feel like they're supposed to. And I think sometimes too, when we're forcing a feeling, that's also a time to kind of know something's not right. Again, it could just be like you want to feel happy. Everybody else is happy. I want to have a happy life too. And like, doing all the things, like, don't I feel happy? Or you're trying to feel appreciative or grateful or all the things, but maybe it's just not genuine. And you're like afraid to say that, right? Like you feel guilty because you're not feeling it, but everybody else around you is, right? There's that pressure, like everybody else is feeling it. Everybody else is hashtagging living their best life, but you're not, and it's just not feeling right. But it's like almost like you don't want to tell people. So, okay, that's a lot. All of that is a lot because it's going to take some time to even decide, if you need a pivot and if you need a little change, and then where do you go? What area do you need that in? Now, I'll say this, that a pivot could look like any change to your current environment. So it can be in any category of your life. It could be within your network, within your friends, within your job. Maybe it's who you're dating or maybe somebody you're talking to, where you're living. It could be what you're eating and drinking, exercising. It could be how you're spending your free time, like what you're spending your free time doing. It could be who you're talking to or getting advice from or venting to. Like all those, there's so many things. These are not all of them, but there's just so many little buckets that if something seems off or if more than one of those things seem off, it can just feel like you're not aligned and like you're not getting the most, like you're not enjoying things as much as you could be. So that could be why you're feeling like you need to pivot, if that kind of makes sense. So like I said, it doesn't have to be all those things. It could just be one area that just needs a little bit of tweaking. That'll just kind of put the train back on the tracks. And if you're kind of wondering like, okay, cool, I'm listening to this episode because I know I need some kind of pivot, but I don't really know where to go from here. So how to do that? Like, how do you even figure out like what area that's in? Like maybe you just know you're feeling some type of way, but you're not really sure like where to dive in. My tips are this: schedule some time to have like alone time with yourself that you can just sit and think and just really drill down and decide what's working for you. And go through all of those like a mental filing cabinet. Go through each file in your filing cabinet and think, okay, when it comes to career, when it comes to my personal life, when it comes to finances or friends or whatever those categories, go through each file and like take a mental kind of like picture of like, how are you feeling? Does it feel like it's working? Does something feel like it's off? And if it feels like it's off, dig a little bit deeper. What in that file feels like it's off, right? Like, let's just talk like finances. I threw the word finances out. If you're feeling like, oh, you know what? I'm not saving enough, right? Like financially, I'm paying my bills, but I'm not saving enough money. Okay, well, let's drill down. Is it just that you're just spending too much and so not enough is going into savings? Is it you've just made a really big purchase and so now you're feeling a little anxious about things because you were putting money in savings, but now you're not because you're, maybe paying something off or just kind of, getting back on your feet from a large purchase. So whatever it is, just kind of go through those files and really drill down, like, what is it in that category that's kind of off right now that needs a little bit of attention. Another tip, and this helps me a lot, is if you're saying, listen, I'm busy, I've got kids, I've got school, I've got work, I've got life, I don't have time to like schedule this on my calendar. I hear you, I get it. Chances are though, you either have to, at some point you have to transport yourself to a job or to school or to bring your kids to school, whatever it might be. You're in a car, right? You're in a car. My tip is this, because this helps me a lot. While you're commuting, wherever you're going, shut the radio off. Shut the sound off around you and just drive in silence. Might seem a little weird at first, especially if this is new to you, but just be alone and let your thoughts go where they go. And do it for as long as you need and as often as you need. And it's a really good way to just kind of like certain thoughts will just kind of pop through naturally. And usually those are the things that need a little bit of attention. So drive in silence. If you're already headed somewhere and if you're able to, shut that radio off. shut off whatever you're listening to and make it so it's nice and quiet for yourself. Another tip is to go for a walk. Maybe the change of scenery, fresh air, getting outside, just moving, kind of just getting your endorphins going will just feel good. It gives you that time to just kind of get out of your environment and give you that time to think and kind of decide what's working and what's not. Another suggestion, and I talk about this on a previous episode, is about journaling. And journaling is such a great place to kind of just write about whatever you need to write about. So if journaling is new to you, I suggest you go back and listen to that episode. But if you are one that journals, look at what you write about the most. If you're somebody who's been journaling for a while, maybe flip through your previous pages and what's the constant theme that seems to be a struggle for you or something that needs attention or a little bit of improvement. Because chances are you've probably written about it several times. And that might tell you, oh, there's a constant theme. And or a year ago, you could look back on journal entries from a year ago or 2 years ago if you've been doing it for a while, 6 months ago maybe. What was going on in your life at that point? What was going well for you and what needed some tweaks? And that's a really good way too to kind of identify what you do need to tweak to kind of get things back on track. Another thing too is, hey, at some point you're going to go to sleep. At some point you're going to shut down for the day and go to bed. And maybe that's your time, is to just put the phone away, take that time to have a few minutes and just kind of, I know meditation's like a big thing right now. You can sit and meditate. You can sit there and also just take the time to be with your thoughts and think through what you're going through. Okay, still, we've talked a lot already about how to pivot, how to figure out what to pivot, and let's talk about when we do this. So now we've decided, okay, I found a couple areas where I need to make some changes, make things a little bit better. When do we do it? Honestly, this is your choice. This is where you make the call for what's best for you. So you either want to pull the Band-Aid off, make those changes right away, or do it slowly. And also, it might not be changes in all those different categories. There might be a couple of things where, got more than one change to make, but it might just be one thing. So that's up to you. My last thing I'll leave you with is, as you're going through this process, check in with yourself. Really take the time to check in with yourself through this and throughout this, just to make sure it feels right. Like as you're making this change, does it feel like, okay, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling, that enjoyment coming back, the peace coming back. Things are more aligned to my values, that the changes feel like they were the right changes. That's really important. You can always go back. To pre-pivot, to pre-pivot days, but just make sure what you're doing feels right. And kind of checking in with yourself from time to time is a really good way to just make that decision. And if it is, keep going on the path you're going. All right. So I hope that the shifts that you are about to make bring you peace, bring more enjoyment back into your life, and try not to feel all the pressure around you. There is so much out there when it comes to, thriving and just, all these buzzwords. There's so many things going out there, and a lot of it's in social media, but a lot of it's also in TV and what we watch, the movies, and everyone's living these crazy wild lives. And if you're not feeling like you are, it's okay. It's totally okay. 'Cause you know what? A very normal routine in a basic life is still a great life. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this has helped you, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Thanks again for joining me today. If this episode has helped you or can help someone you know, please share it with them. Stay safe, and we'll chat again soon.